The Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide is now in session. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mr. Connor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioners, I call Padre Gary Stone.
I brought my own little Bible along. The one over there was a bit too big. This is all we can carry in the army.
Padre, do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence that you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, so help me God.
Operator, might you display today's tender list bundle, please? And might you go to page 4 of that bundle? Commissioners, I tender items 23 and 24 on that bundle.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. They'll be accepted as exhibits and to be assigned the exhibit numbers in the order in which they appear in the list.
Thank you, Commissioner. Padre, in 1970, you entered the Royal Military College, Duntroon.
Yes.
You've had a career as an infantry officer for 22 years.
Yes.
You've commanded troops in various Royal Australian regiments. What regiments were they?
I started off in the 8th 9th Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment and as a platoon commander and intelligence officer. I then subsequently was a company commander in the 6th Battalion, and later in life I was the second in command of the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, but also administered command of the battalion on operations.
Now, from 1974 to 1975, you served in the 2nd Malaysian Emergency.
Yes.
In 1975 and 1976, you served as an intelligence officer in the infantry battalion.
Absolutely, and it's been very helpful researching a lot of stuff and having that intelligence background, yeah.
Now, between 1978 and 1980, you travelled to the United Kingdom and you're an exchange instructor at the Royal Military College at Sandhurst.
Fantastic. The motto there was lead to serve and serve to lead. That's what we're trying to do here in Australia as well.
Now, in 1983, you graduated from the Australian Command and Staff College at the Australian War College.
Yes, or the Australian, it's now called the War College, I think. It was the Command and Staff College then as a major, and then subsequently at the Joint Services Staff College when I was a Lieutenant Colonel. Yeah.
In 1987, you commanded the troops deployed in connection with the coup in Fiji.
Correct, yes.
In 1989, you led an Australian contingent of peacekeeping forces deployed to the Iraq-Iran war.
Yeah, watershed in my life, yeah.
Why was it a watershed?
It was probably the most traumatic experience for me. It was, it was this war beyond belief. It was like World War I. A million troops facing each other, been killing each other, people dying. Everywhere we went, walking through minefields, everyone's got a gun, people shooting off all over the place. And yeah, I had a number of traumatic experiences there. I got taken captive a couple of times and had to negotiate my way out of that. But it had a massive impact upon my life that, hypervigilance, hyper-arousal, hyper-everything. And I'd like to think I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder anymore. I've got post-traumatic growth, absolutely, but I'm still pretty hyper, as you're going to see this afternoon. Yeah.
Now, in 1990, I think you graduated from the Joint Services Staff College.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, thereafter, you were the Land Operation Officer at the headquarters of the Australian Defence Force during the First Gulf War.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, in December 1994, you were ordained in the Catholic Church as a married deacon for chaplaincy to the Army.
Yes.
In that role, you initially saw Army operational service in Timor and Bougainville.
Yes. Yeah.
In 2005, you were appointed as a chaplain to the Australian Federal Police response to the Asian tsunami.
Sure. Actually, I'd transferred from the regular army to the Army Reserve at that point. In fact, the day I finished in the regular army, I got a phone call from the Federal Police asking me if I would work with them part-time. Commissioner Caldas, I brought my police operations medal here. I hope we could talk about the police that are traumatised by working on military operations. So I then had a period of 7 years where I was working both in the Army Reserve and also in the Federal Police International Deployment Group.
Now, between 2005, you were deployed to Thailand and you had numerous deployments to Timor and the Solomons.
Yeah, I had 9 deployments in Timor with the Federal Police and 9 in the Solomons. Yeah.
Now, since 2015, you've served as a chaplain for ex-service people and their families in southeast Queensland.
Correct. That's my appointment from Archbishop Coleridge here in the Catholic Archdiocese of Brisbane, yes.
Now, you have 4 children and 2 of them of whom are veterans.
Absolutely, and they're here today as well.
Now, in 1999, your son Michael graduated from the Royal Military College, Duntroon.
And went, the day after he graduated, straight to Timor. Yeah.
Now, and in 2007, your son Paul graduated from the Royal Military College at Duntroon.
Yes, also, similar for him, shortly after he graduated, he deployed to Timor as well.
Now, in 2001, you founded an organisation known as Friends and Partners of East Timor. And what acronym do you use for that?
It was called FPET, but I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but it probably shaped what we're doing now, because when I went to Timor in 2000, like, the country is like totally devastated. I mean, like, everything that could be stolen was stolen by the Indonesian military. Anything that was left was burnt down. The people are just standing there in the clothes that they had. And I saw that we needed to do something. I saw that the government of the day just wanted to get out of there as quick as possible. You know, the soldiers are told you're not allowed to give rations to the locals. They've got to work it out for themselves. So I came back and shared with a bunch of people in the Gap, the parish I was in, and we said, we're going to do something about this. And we started raising money, and I went, is it okay if I share this now? Because it's relevant to what we're doing. And I went back to Timor. I was still in the regular army, actually, but I just managed to get back to Timor the next year. I went and saw the bishop there, and I said, what can we do? And, like, everything needed to be done. Everything. And there's no doctors, there's no healthcare, there's no clean water, there's no food. And he said, well, 3 priorities. Educate, educate, educate. Educate the people in Christian values so they'll live peaceably together and can resolve their conflicts. Educate the people in healthcare so that they'll stay healthy and won't get sick and can help each other. And then educate the people vocationally so they can get a job and support their families. And what we're doing now in the Veterans Care Association very much is an echo of that. It's a little bit different. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but that was a seminal experience for me, and again for the other veterans and other civilian members that supported us, of living out the most basic human value of loving your neighbour. And yeah, if we can encourage more Australians to embrace that value, we will be a much better world. Yeah.
The RSL recognised the value of FPET and the contribution in 2005 by awarding its National Peace Prize to FPET.
That's right, thank you, yeah.
Now, in 2014, you founded another organisation called the Veterans Care Association. Might this document be displayed, please? VCR.0001.0001.006. Now, is that connected with that organisation?
Yes, so my son Michael Stone presented to the Commission a report on Monday about our flagship activity, which is running a program we call Timor Awakening. And I can go into more detail on that as well. But
in due course. Yeah.
definitely, that's what we do.
Now, we'll go into that in due course. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the Veterans Care Association and what you've done
Sure.
in that territory, particularly the experience that you've had
Yeah,
in the interaction with the numerous veterans
absolutely. Okay, so
and how you interact?
sure. Okay, I think it's good just to hear a bit of human stuff here. So I've just got a couple of notes, but I'll try to speak extemporaneously. You might ask, why did we start this Veterans Care Association? Well, as you've heard, I've had a pretty interesting and diverse life in the military, lots of highs and and some lows. I was definitely traumatised in that Iran-Iraq war experience, but like so many others, I wanted to keep serving. And I had to keep my health problems to myself, or otherwise I would have got kicked out, because that's from 1992. That was the way the military decided they were going to keep the numbers in the military sort of down or reduce the army back. So we in the old when I joined up, someone got broken, injured, whatever, that we'd make them into a storeman or a clerk, or we'd continue to employ them or employ them in the reserve. And we changed a complete 180 degrees. After 1992, suddenly, if you weren't 100% fit, you were out. You couldn't transfer to the Army Reserve, you couldn't do anything. So there were lots of us that were injured, wounded, and we just soldiered on by ourselves, because if you went to the doctor, you went to the psychologist or whatever, you're on the way out, and that was it. And this had been our vocation. You know, when I signed up to join the military, I signed up because I was going to Duntroon to serve until my retiring age, and that was my vision. So I had to deal with that myself.
Just before you go on there.
Yeah, sure.
1992.
Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, well, the government decided to downsize the army. Up until then, we'd had 6 regular infantry battalions, where we downsized down to 3. And they decided, as a management tool, the way they could best do that is that, first of all, we get rid of all the people that are lower than 100% fit. So, boom, they're all gone. And then they approached it. So we got rid of all of them. One of them had been my company sergeant major, who'd been struggling with cancer. But again, we'd found work for him, and he was doing really good, meaningful work. But he got the word that he's on the way out. He died within 3 weeks. He had moral injury. He couldn't believe that the military that he served and loved just wanted to get rid of him as some management tool. But yeah, I've been out of the army for a few years now, but maybe they've eased up on that a little bit. But there's all these different medical classifications. But broadly speaking, anyone in the military knows that if they're not 100% fit, they're in risk of getting the boot. And because of that, we don't tell people what's wrong with us. We just tell them, you fill in the psych forms. Yes, good. So a lot of those psychometric things mean nothing, because we're trying to look after our jobs and our security and our families. Anyway, is that okay? Is that right?
1992 was a watershed, another watershed period.
It was, yeah. Well, for me as well, actually. At that stage, when I came back from the Iran-Iraq war, because of the difficulties in the war, before I'd gone there, I'd been asked whether I'd consider being a chaplain. You know, you might be aware, we're a bit short of Catholic priests in Australia, so they came up with this idea of ordaining married men as chaplains, or as deacons to be chaplains. So I'd been asked whether I'd do that before the war, and when I came back, when I escaped from these gunmen, one day I said, if I survive the war, I'll offer myself for that program, and I started in that. So it was a watershed for me. And had I not done that, it gave me a bit of a breathing space, because I went into a training period then, and I didn't have the pressure of being a lieutenant colonel and trying to, run a whole range of systems and finances, etc. But I suppose the point I want to make, all that through that period, I'm cared for by my wife, Lynn, over there.
Yes. Perhaps
if I can continue on, So so many of us got to treat ourselves, by ourselves, keeping it a secret from the hierarchy, because we can't trust them, okay? We can't trust. You know, one of my mates was a chaplain. He got depression, and we said, "Oh, mate, you better go and see the psych." Before you know it, he's gone. Boom. He's still a wreck living up at Mullaney. He hasn't got over the fact that he tried so hard to help people, it burnt him out, but as soon as he was burnt out, he's knocked out. Anyway, if I can just continue a little bit. Like nothing, I tried a whole bunch of little different things, little programs, you know, did equine therapy and a few other things, but nothing individually really seemed to help long term. 2013, I've got cancer. My father's dying. I've got stress. I've got the cancer operation buggers up and I end up with peritonitis. Michael comes back from Timor. Michael's had 90 months deployed overseas. 90 months deployed overseas. Numerous life-threatening situations. Some of them, I was there with him. I've been doing funerals every second week for veterans that are dying. So some of them with suicide, but lots of them just dying early because they're just burnt out and we don't know how they can be helped. But I knew something had to be done. My army training kicked in. I knew we had a systemic problem that required a strategic response, a strategic change. A bunch of us got together, we researched the situation, we discovered the concept of holistic health. Now, I'd been seeing clinicians privately, but none of them ever talked about holistic health. You know, there's all these little stovepipes. You know, the psychologist does something there and the psychiatrist over there and the GP there, or the physiologist somewhere else. But none of it was sort of linked. And then we realised that holistic health needed to be addressed. We also realised that we could fill what was like a massive gap between being healthy over here and being in acute care there. And that's what happens to people. You know, they end up in acute care and there's nothing sort of like in between. We realised that we could fill that gap with education. And tell you what, we're really good at education in the military. And we thought we could educate people. Once we learned how to get healthy, we could educate other people how to get healthy. And also through peer support, because that's the only way we survive, by helping and supporting each other. And we knew we could engage veterans earlier in the journey in ways that the civilian clinicians don't get access to them. Because as you heard Nikki say earlier, the veteran closes down. They go into the cave. They don't come out of their house. But we could engage with them because we're mates, because we're faithful friends, or we're connected to them in other ways. Indeed, that clinical issue is problematic because most clinical activity is reactive and requires the veteran to actually initiate it. Now, some of these guys are in no position to even organise an appointment, let alone wait for 6 months to see the psychiatrist because of the big queue that's there. Anyway, we started off working one-on-one with moderate success, but Michael was inspired to replicate the very best experiences we had in the military, where we came together and we completed a mission. Okay, and so we came up with this concept of the Timor Awakening program that involved this intentional mission, not only of getting healthy, but also to help other veterans and to help our Timorese neighbours who had helped our commandos in World War II. So today we both help veterans directly, we guide them to clinicians, and with the training and expertise we gained in the military, we've been able to build the resilience of veterans to minimise their risk of suicide and inspire them to embrace preventative factors. Now, we're doing this at the tactical level. We put about 450 people through the program, but we've got a strategic aim. We want to change the veterans' paradigm. We want to change it from a focus on sickness and what's not working, what's buggered up, to a focus on wellness and how we can get better. This is the real challenge for us here, because while people are focused on what's going wrong, they get worse. If they can get focused on what could be better, they get better. There's a placebo effect that works there as well. Yeah, our vision is to transform the national veterans paradigm from treating sickness to a funded promoting wellness model. if I could just sort of finish with one sharp point here, almost no government funding goes into prevention or preventative health or wellness. We implore you to help us change that paradigm.
And you mentioned the holistic approach, as it were, multimodal, if that's a word that's suitable.
Yeah.
But you see that as needing to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we can, obviously I've got some in my notes here, I can talk about that a little bit later, but would you like me to continue on?
You continue.
Okay, thank you.
You've got matters of concern, and
Sure.
you've given consideration of where might we go.
Absolutely, thank you. Look, firstly, to all involved in this Royal Commission, all the folks at the back, folks at the top, can I just say thank you? Like, this is like a glimmer of hope for us that things can be transformed. Honestly, I heard your opening remarks, last Friday, and as we've been trying to watch each day, like, this is hope-filled for us veterans, okay? Because where is it here? Like, year after year, one study, one report, recommendations, and nothing gets done. Actually, when I was a colonel in the military, that was the strategy that Defence used to use. They'd come up, we'd do a report, and they say, oh, no, we need to do some more investigations. It was the technique we used to avoid doing something. Well, guess what? It's got to stop here. This commission needs to not only make recommendations, but ensure that they're carried out. And you've actually, like here, Bernadette Boss's report, brilliant. We put 350 pages of submission into that. The recommendations for what you need to do are almost there. But we can't wait another 2 years for you to agree with them. Like, if there's anything that you can recommend to happen early, please do it. Believe me, like, we're dealing with suicidal veterans every week. Veterans will die this week if we don't act. I'm not being melodramatic here. We've got to deal with it, okay? Sorry. Look, can I just... Sorry, I've just calmed down a little bit.
No apologies.
Can I just say...
Necessary.
We're grateful for your approach. We're, right from the start, you've shown empathy, you've shown compassion, you're trauma aware. This is brilliant. Thank you so much for that. My hope and dream is that this can be an awakening for everybody involved, an awakening. Because some of you just heard Nikki speak. How many people got insight out of that? Most people wouldn't have even heard of that before. And we're on the verge of being able to make a substantial gain, not only in reducing veteran suicide, but improving not only improving the health of our veteran community, but improving the whole national health. Because fair income, this paradigm is buggered up. We're spending all our money on acute care after they've already jumped off the cliff, or they're in a difficult situation. And I'm hoping this is going to be an awakening. Look, can I just say, and there's a number of veterans here, I've always been proud to be a soldier and a peacemaker. I've been fortunate to have had a lived experience as an infantry commander, bringing out the best in soldiers, but also preventing abuse and sending offenders to jail. I've had a lived experience as a chaplain of building resilience and right behaviour amongst our soldiers through character training and wellbeing education, as well as having to knock on the door of families and tell them that their son has died, and then support them in their grief. I've had the lived experience with my wife of being a parent to 2 veterans. I've seen them joyfully go off on operations. I've been there with them some of the time. But I've also had nightmares that one day we would get the Padre knock on our door. Now, you've met our son, Michael. If anyone here doubts there is a resurrection from the dead, you don't think that happened with Jesus, well, here's living proof of it. Here's a man who's turned his life around from the pits of despair to now leading veterans and saving their lives. He was comprehensively broken, but with the help of family and friends, he's now refounded, reordered, and saving other people. Our other son, Paul, continues to serve in the military. He was just promoted last Saturday to be a company commander in one of the battalions here. Look, we've all been blessed by my wife, Lynn, our daughters, Catherine and Christy. They've had to be the veteran carers. See, a lot of us veterans need caring. Now, they've had to be the veteran carers. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you to all the understanding families who've suffered much because of our military service in the cause of peace. But guess what? It was worth it. We have made the world a better place everywhere we've gone, particularly in our own region, and we're continuing to do it. Please, can we honour the families in this process? Because we're grateful to them. Now, to get back to your question, okay, for the last year, I've been involved in leading this veterans care team. Currently have about 20 volunteers, veteran volunteers and clinicians and partners from a wide range of disciplines. Michael briefed on that on Monday. And we've sent out hundreds of veterans and their partners who've done our programs off into the wider veteran world to assist in a range of caring roles. We focused on delivering health and wellbeing education and peer support mentoring. We do that because we know that through that we can implement both preventative and interventional activities that will minimise the risk of suicidal ideation, help people stay alive, find healing, develop hope, and find a new identity and purpose. Now, that's what we do. Why we do it is more significant. And why do our volunteers keep turning up? Now, we actually have to limit the number of volunteers we've got because we just haven't got capacity, and we're not, believe me, like Michael said the other day, we're not wanting to get bigger or do more programs. We're wanting the whole thing just to be adapted and developed all around Australia. Why are we successful? Well, firstly, we're mature age veterans with credibility. We've lived experience of every dimension of military life. We've been injured, we've been traumatised and occasionally bullied, but we've bounced back and we've drawn strength and hope from the camaraderie and mateship that has been part of our tradition. Our ethos has been service. We are service people. We are never going to be ex-service people. We continue to be service people. And we, like here, the little symbol I've got, we are a tribe. We are going to look after each other, whether the government does that or not, okay? It's part of our culture. Now, look, it's been, man, the reason I'm so emotional today, it's just been shocking to hear the stories that some of the families have had to share with you. Anyone listening to this out there in Australia, most military people are really good people, fair income, and I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Bullying is abhorrent to us. There's no training pamphlet that says you need to bash people up or yell at them or scream at them, anything like that. Absolutely, good leadership is compassionate, caring and empowering. So the stories that you hear, they are not part of our culture, they're aberrations. And only as a chaplain did I realise why we have those problems. Because many people who join our Defence Force have been abused before they came into the Defence Force. And it might have been by family members in school or some other situation. They join the military to get away from a dysfunctional situation. Now, some of them turn out to be good soldiers or airmen or seamen. Some of them continue to be a victim. Some of them become perpetrators. And that's the tragedy of it. So what you're hearing, it's being brought into the military. And it's like in all of society. It's a social cancer that we just have to keep cutting out. But believe me, we can overcome evil with good. For our team, some of them here today, our team approach is rooted in deeply spiritual values of compassion, of care and integrity that were actually part of our indoctrination into military life. Now, you ask any soldier here that's There are probably not too many in the room here. Any soldier, Daryl's over there, any soldier who goes through Kapuka will tell you the best time they had at the Kapuka was the time they had with the Padres. Because the Padres nurtured them in those values, those human values, to be a good human being. Hey, we're proud to have served in uniform. We joyfully continue to serve now as veteran carers. And we hope this commission and the media can firstly, shine light on what's gone wrong. Shine light on what could be improved. But also shine light on all the good things and all the good people that are working at this right now. Affirm them. They're working body, mind and soul in a quest to save veterans' lives. Not just our organisation, there's lots of them. Some people say there's too many. We need more. Every veteran that can man the pumps needs to be getting to work at saving someone else's life. It's tragic and we grieve that more than 1,200 have taken their lives in the last 20 or so years. But let me assure you that during that same time there would be 12,000 formerly suicidal veterans that are still alive today because of the intentional, caring, loving of some veteran who stepped into their life and got them through it. Veterans care. On the back of our hats is this: veterans care. We really care. Some people think that veterans are the problem. I want to say to you that veterans can be part of the solution. Veterans can be central to the solution that's needed. At the moment, sometimes we're regarded, one senior person said to me once, "Oh, yeah, Gary, keep doing that sort of stuff, but it's just sort of fluff. You know, you must know that like the real work is done through medication and cognitive behaviour therapy." I said, well, that's not what the veterans tell me. That didn't help me at all. Medication just messed me up even further. We have been grappling with these issues all our working lives, and we will keep coming up with solutions. It would be nice, though, to get some systemic help if you're able to organise that. Now, I'm mindful here, there are folks here because they really want to be here. All of us have been touched by veteran suicide. One of my Duntroon classmates is here. Two of my Duntroon classmates, Rod and Merv, completed suicides. Merv took his life in 1999 after being arrested and charged with divulging intelligence to the US military about Indonesian military atrocities in East Timor. He'd been a colonel in the army and he got charged with treason for telling the Americans of all the bad things that were happening that our government didn't want them to know. A four-corner story was made on that. I'm not making this up. He was a man of integrity and honour and felt at the time our government was acting unconscionably. Rod took his life after being quickly medically discharged, like I described earlier, after having a breakdown. He'd attempted the SAS selection course and was failed on it. People humiliated him about that. He felt shame and rejection. He felt betrayed, bewildered, unjustly treated. He had no plan or hopes for the future, but he was on his way out. That started his problems. He had a little bit of a health problem, but it just became worse by being booted out. His subsequent behaviour was severely impacted by over-medication. I mean, I think Andrew Koo talked about this. Yes, this is scandalous, the amount of medication that people get put on. It makes them sick. Now, there might be some medications that work, but guess what? I haven't found too many, and we deal with veterans every week. He was over-medicated, he had electric shock treatments, he was confined in a psychiatric ward. But he wasn't a psychiatric case. He was depressed. Unbeknown to us, both Rod and Merv really died from what we now name, what Nikki named as moral injury or moral trauma. Friends, I cried and cried and cried the night I heard of Rod's death. I hadn't known how to help him. This is the dilemma that most of us face. But guess what? I do know now. No veteran other veteran needs to die by suicide because we've got people and ways to help them. We can save others. We are saving that now because we've got insight and we've educated ourselves and understand what's going on. I just want to light a candle here, just symbolically, just to, in the memory of all those who have died by suicide, because they're with us, they're watching this, and they're expecting us to do something about it. I also light the candle because no matter how dark the situation, light can come into it, and the darkness will never overcome it. I'd like to offer the Commission some deeper understanding of 6 core issues to this situation we've got. Holistic health, which you mentioned earlier, moral trauma, prevention, early intervention, identity and purpose, and acute care. Would you like me to continue on?
You might. You spoke broadly of holistic health.
Yeah, sure.
And we kind of understand that idea.
Sure.
You've spoken about moral trauma.
Yep.
And we heard from Mrs. Jemison this morning about that. Sure. Now, you've interviewed thousands and thousands of veterans.
Yeah. Yes.
And Defence Force people, for that matter.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you mind just telling us a little bit more about your lived experience, as it were, of what you've gained from those interviews and this idea of moral trauma?
Okay, sure. Well, can I say just in lead up to that, like the most fundamental issue is that holistic approaches are required to this. Certainly, we've tabled 7 years of quantitative and qualitative data, how a holistic approach is needed. Not a piecemeal approach, bit here, bit there, a completely integrated holistic approach. And I'm sure Phil is going to talk about that after me today. We have demonstrated that a holistic intervention model that involves concurrent bio, psycho, social, spiritual education delivered by lived experienced veterans not only works successfully in preventing suicide, but it actually complements the medical model. I hope, Peggy, you'll be pleased to hear about that. And most significantly, we help veterans develop a new identity and purpose, and belonging to a tribe that cares for other veterans and loves them into meaningful life. Now, you've given me the graveyard shift in the military, you've got to do lots of things to keep people awake. All the Catholics here are probably getting a bit dozy already. So I thought I'd bring along a few training aids. So this is the model that we use. And very, very simply, we would say that for every veteran, for every human being really, there are a number of pillars to live a healthy life.
Just go near the microphone a little bit there.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay.
Or bring the microphone towards you.
Okay, 4 pillars. We need to nurture our body through exercise and nutrition. We need to nurture our minds through meditation, through mindfulness, through health, through good gut. Actually, I think you've had a speaker talk about that. If you haven't got good gut health, you're going to have bad mental health. We need to nurture our soul. We need to have a purpose to live for. We need to have life-giving activity to be involved in. And we need to nurture our relationships. They're the 4 pillars. But on top of that is this purpose for life. We need to have a purpose and an identity that we're delighted, we're happy to have. Now, the real message of this example here, you probably think, yeah, of course you need to do all of that. But I tell you what, if you're not doing all of that at once, if you're just working on the physical or just, going to sort of yoga classes or something, if any one of these legs is weak or broken, you will keep falling over. So this is the breakthrough that we had. Unless you've got a completely holistic program, you're spending a lot of money to get people a little bit better and then they collapse because something else falls over. So can I just table that as evidence, please? Or leave it here so so you asked me about moral trauma. I'll talk about that. Now, Nikki's obviously spoken to, it's just fascinating, listening to her speak from a research perspective. I can talk on behalf of our team from our lived experience, because we've just been working with people. We get a group in, at the end of the program, we evaluate. The Army trained us to do this sort of stuff, to deliver training, evaluate it, improve it, add something, take something out. Many people, I just want to say, many people imagine that post-traumatic stress is the primary cause of suicide. But post-traumatic stress, by definition, broadly involves the stress and fear of life-threatening experiences. And clearly post-traumatic stress is massively injurious. I had post-traumatic stress. I won't use PTSD. Nobody should be labelled disordered. I had post-traumatic stress, but it doesn't directly result in suicide. Untreated moral trauma does. You heard that from Nikki. You're hearing it from me. Like, we haven't collaborated on this, and we've got years of research behind it. As you said, from thousands and thousands of soldiers and sailors and airmen, male and female, all services, over the last 30 years, I attest that the question you were asking us right at the start, the higher suicidal ideation rates of veterans are predominantly a result of unresolved moral trauma, involving hopelessness, shame, guilt, loss of identity and purpose. People with suicidal ideation hate their state of life. They want to die. Those with post-traumatic stress want to live. They're constantly on alert to avoid danger. So I hope people can understand these are two different things, okay? Now, as Nikki explained, like, some people have got both, so that's a little bit more problematic, okay? But at least if we know what horse we're riding on, we're going to get a better treatment outcome. Moral injuries are experienced cumulatively from childhood through our military service and beyond. But the cumulative problem, at some point you get to the drowning sort of like phase up to here. And of course it's not just combat type service that brings this on. These feelings, this situation develops from, the feelings of powerless to respond to abuse or harassment, the shame of addiction to alcohol or gambling or drugs, and most significantly, the shame and embarrassment of marriage or relationship breakdown. Get this, I bet you haven't thought about this. Some veterans who have suicided have the shame of being the perpetrators of abuse or wrongdoing. So we're all thinking there's a whole bunch of bad people out there who hurt some of our veterans. Well, no doubt, they were wounded as children, they came in and they did the same to others. Guess what? We've got to care for them as well. And that's my great hope, is that anyone watching this today will be uplifted and relieved that they can unburden themselves of that shame and that guilt and that rejection and that hope. And that redemption and forgiveness is possible. We can and are helping people deal with these situations. I said to you before, all of our team, all of us have been traumatised, but we considered, hey, we're not disordered, we're on a journey of post-traumatic growth. Have people heard about that? I hope you've heard of that term, post-traumatic growth. That is empowering. We're not disordered, we're reordered, and we're repurposed. And I would implore the Commission to shine light on the treatment of and healing of moral trauma. It's not understood by many people. I mean, I'm sure lots of people haven't even thought about it before. It's not, bizarrely, right at the moment, it's not actually considered a medical condition. It certainly isn't in the DSM, like Nikki said, it's not in the DSM-5. If you go to DVA and say, I've got moral trauma, they say, I'm not critical of DVA in this, like, hey, it's not in the statement of principles, it's not a condition that that's on our sheet, it's not compensable. Overseas evidence shows that medicating people with moral injury is actually injurious to them. So guess what? We've had a whole bunch of people that have been given a whole bunch of drugs that has made them sexually impotent, has made them constantly sleepy, made them angry and grumpy, and man, they didn't need any of that. So we need to shout this from the rooftops. Let's make sure we're treating people for the right condition and not treat them with things that are going to make them worse. There's another little problem here. Some veterans sick with moral injury, knowing that DVA doesn't compensate moral injury, maybe embellish their story, make out, anyone can tell you, if you go to DVA and tell them that, you grind your teeth, you can't sleep at night, you're constantly hypervigilant, hyper-aroused and that, the doctor listens to you and says, well, you must have PTSD. Here we are, here's a whole bunch of medications you need to have. So that's part of the problem. Veterans are part of the problem because they don't admit to what they've actually got. But of course, some of them wouldn't know they've got moral injury. They just know they're sick and they're looking for a solution. But you can't get DVA support for moral injury. Now, Stuart Smith is here. He might know that. I know they're looking into it, okay, but at the moment, that's a problem. Can I say, and Nikki mentioned this, like military chaplains are at the forefront of proactively dealing with moral injury for those in uniform. Like, this is not new for those folks in the military. And paradoxically, the condition is present in veterans because they've been inculcated with really good values. They've had character formation of loyalty and trust and integrity and mateship. And when they experience a violation of those values by one of their seniors or by the government, it's bewilderment. The bewilderment and betrayal of that is just devastating. As I said, it's cumulative. It peaks after being discharged from the military. You might be fascinated to know that the United States Veterans Administration employs almost 1,000 veteran chaplains, not uniformed army chaplains, veteran chaplains to deal with this phenomenon. Nikki endorsed this. Veterans trust chaplains, and we love them. Now, the Australian DVA is yet to employ anyone in addressing this situation. But being a good intelligence officer, I've worked out that they're working on it. They've even put a proposal to the Minister. Minister G or your staff, if you're listening, accept the proposal. It's been signed off by all of the senior folks in DVA. Accept it now and get this rolling. It'll take a while to turn out, but this is a proactive way, something we can do immediately to get people out there. I'll talk a little bit more about this, to get people out there searching out lost sheep. I'll talk about that more later. Prevention. Can I talk about prevention? Okay. Thirdly, we need to invest in prevention. This is like a medical term. The earliest education and training in health and well-being, and helping veterans be aware of the possibility of healing and redemption will dissipate their descent into hopelessness. The critical point is the process of transition. I think we can talk about more of this later if we've got time. But
what about if you just go into
Anyway, so
matter.
At the very least, those veterans discharging against their will need to be provided with a comprehensive education and training package that helps them to develop a health and well-being plan into life beyond the military. Then they'd be better equipped and more resilient to deal with the situation afterwards. Of course, it would be desirably delivered by lived experience, transition veterans who can share their successes and failures and provide them with peer mentoring. Now, clearly, we've got a template. The evidence-based program Michael has developed that could easily be adapted. I would note that when we get the feedback from the veterans who do the program, the particular aspect that veterans identify most as helping to prevent suicidal ideation, and most of the people that come to us have had suicidal ideation, the specific thing that they mention is the attention that Michael built into the program about processing forgiveness, either asking for forgiveness or offering forgiveness, because that treats moral trauma and moral injury.
Early intervention?
Early intervention. The longer veterans wait for treatment, the more their symptoms increase. Every doctor will tell you that. But our current system is reactive, not proactive. As a chaplain in uniform, I spent most of my time out and about visiting people where they were at. I didn't sit in my office waiting for people to come to me. Diggers would say to me, Padre, I've been meaning to see someone, but I just haven't had scope to get around to it. And I say, well, here I am. Let's talk about it right now. And on the spot, I would do a little triage with them. I'd listen to their story, and I'd help them develop some options and guide them in the way that I thought they might need to go. And it might be to spend a bit more time talking to me, or I might get them to go and see a doctor. Peer mentors can do the same. And I'd like to name this the shepherd and sheepdog strategy. I bet you haven't heard that before. But it actually, it's a scientific, I've got a little book here. Colonel David Crossman, a lot of the military guys here would have heard from him. He was a former US Army Ranger, and he became a clinical psychologist. And he has written, and he works with the police in America as well, he has written this seminal article sort of saying, if we're going to stop people killing themselves, we need more shepherds and sheepdogs that are going to go out there and particularly look for the lost sheep. See, we can help the veterans that come to us for help, but the ones that are out in the cave, in the tent, sleeping in their car, unless we go out looking for them, they're going to be gone before we know it. So we got to, this is what I learned in the infantry. You can't sit back in the base and expect, you're going to win the war. Man, you've got to get out, go out into no man's land and engage. We need shepherds and sheepdogs. That's right. Actually, no, that's why I brought... Look,
How do we do that?
Well, that's right, I'll tell you that now. So I brought this another little prop here along. So the people in Bougainville gave this to me on a mission that I had there. And they made, there's no sheep in Bougainville. They'd never seen sheep before, but they heard about sheep in the Bible, and they'd hear on the radio that the shepherd, like the radio call sign for the Padre is the shepherd. They'd hear, the Padre's coming in. And at that stage, I just used to carry a staff. And the people, there's a pepper getting plenty there, Wendy. So they said, Padre, you're a shepherd, you need a shepherd's crook. And so that's what we do. That's how you got to do this. So you've got to get out there, and you've got to get out there and be with people. As I said, early intervention within defence is facilitated by the chaplains, by caring leaders, and it's assisted by mates. But the model doesn't relate to life after defence. Now, DVA has just started a modest peer program. We're working with them. We've got 2 people from the program coming on our next program, but it needs to be expanded alongside a chaplaincy service, and also with the upskilling and the funding of welfare officers that work in the various veteran service organisations. We've obviously been developing like a shepherd and sheepdog training program, and Michael's got this a veteran peer mentor program, and it's very similar to the Certificate 4 required for peer mentor health workers, peer mental health workers in the NDIS program. I'd like to go back to that NDIS program later. It can absolutely be customised for veteran-specific needs and approved as a national qualification that can be delivered around the country. Man, like, we can develop a package that any former sergeant, warrant officer can just pick up the package and deliver it, because we're good at that. Look, I haven't got the capacity to do that, and that's a bridge too far for us. But it can be a war winner. We can just train a whole bunch of people that can go out there and look after our veterans. I think we better get on to the next one.
your 5th topic that you were going to speak about was identity and purpose.
Sure.
Can you speak to that? We don't have too much time.
I know, look at that. Goodness me, I don't want to keep you late here. Okay, look, critical to any intervention is the formation of a new identity and purpose. The most basic human desire of any veteran is the need to belong and have a sound identity and purpose. And of course, if they haven't got that, they're going to struggle. We can facilitate that. The veteran community can facilitate that. Firstly, our dream, and it is possible, is that every veteran transitioning would have a peer mentor in the area where they're going to go and live, who journeyed with them from being in the uniform to being outside the uniform. There are 600,000 veterans watching these proceedings, wondering how they can help. If we engage just 1% of them, for every veteran that leaves the military, we could offer them a peer mentor that could just journey with them. It would be life-giving for the person transitioning. It would be life-giving for the veteran that was helping them. When we start our programs, I show veterans this bunch of broken glass here, so people can see that. Now, that's what most people think we are, us veterans. We're broken. We're all over the place. And I say, well, we've got a problem, we've got a program to offer you, and we're going to turn that brokenness into something beautiful. I turn it over and I show them this tree of life. We can all belong. We can all be connected together. We can all be fruitful. My wife, I honour my wife Lynn, she made this for us as a training aid. And people look at that and they reimagine, like, I never thought I could be anything other than broken. Unfortunately, that's a bad term that we've got in the military. I'm broken. No, you're not broken. We're going to put that brokenness together and we're going to build something beautiful together. That moves people's hearts. That imagination that not only that can they be better, but they can be involved in the quest that we're on to improve the lives of the veteran community.
Some need acute care, don't they?
Pardon?
Some need acute care.
Yeah, that's right. Some need acute care. Look, absolutely, we support clinicians, but can I just say most veterans would prefer to see clinicians and clinical settings that are specialised in veterans' work, much like the US system. Any experienced clinicians will tell you that veterans are a definite subculture and their complex cases require specialised insight. We need more psychiatrists like Andrew Koo, more GPs like Phil Parker, who's going to speak next, more psychologists like Christian Lind, who spoke on Monday, folks who know veterans and work specifically for them. There's no point sending them to some guy that's got no idea. Man, if I could go on forever talking about this. The military made the most stupid decision a few years ago. They took all the doctors and nurses and medics out of the units and concentrated them in the health battalions. We need to send them back. We need clinicians who know veterans and give them, when you go to the medical post, you're going to see the person who saw you, for the last year or 2 years or whatever, because that's good health care. You can't just go to go to the Booper guy who just got off the boat yesterday and they put him here this week and next week we'll have a different guy. We need clinicians that understand veterans.
Padres in the units and clinicians in the
That's
units.
right, and the chaplains as well. Yeah, obviously we need, I hadn't heard that they're planning to reduce the number of chaplains. Goodness me. Man, we've got to go the other way. There's no commanding officer in the military that say, I don't want a chaplain. They're screaming for them. Look, in addition to the acute care issue, I think there's a lengthy waiting times to access psychiatrists and clinical psychologists, let alone GPs. But people that are needing acute care, they can't wait for 6 months to see a psychiatrist. You just can't get in earlier than that. And then when they do see them, they've got to wait another few weeks before they can make another appointment. We've got to have something that bridges that gap. Now, I only discovered this recently. The NDIS has got a scheme for this. They've got a whole bunch of peer mentors that the government pays. Now, how is it the civilians can get access to a carer when at the moment a veteran can't? There's an easy fix. I hope someone can run that down and say, man, we need to be doing this because we deal with people day to day. We haven't got capacity to deal with any more. But if we had a whole bunch of veterans that were working in that caring space, we'd have a better outcome. Look, I've almost said enough. Can I just sum up some words? Is that okay?
You certainly can.
That's okay. Look, key points. The present reality is that our government provides unlimited funding to acute care, but almost no funding for facilitation of prevention or early intervention. Despite the wellness rhetoric that now a lot of people are using, the funding arrangements haven't changed. They're still focused on sickness rather than wellness. Indeed, they provide a reward for sickness. I'm told by DVA this is a legislative problem. Well, DVA, do something about it. Upgrade the legislation. Man, you've got lawyers. I got a couple of lawyers. I'll send them to you to help it out. If there's a legislative problem, man, this is a free country. We can change these things. People are dying under the current arrangements. An industry has built up around treating sick veterans after they've crashed, rather than getting them healthier and self-managing. Many suicidal veterans are of the mindset they are totally and permanently incapacitated. That's their mindset. They're buggered, and that's how they live, without imagining that they can be healthier. Look, I'm designated TPI. Now, I probably am, in terms of being a lieutenant colonel leading 800 men to take the hill. But guess what? I can still love and care. a system paradigm shift to a wellness focus, and a veteran mind shift from disorder to growth are the most fundamental shifts required. Veteran mentors can facilitate this. Veterans are facilitating this now, albeit they're doing it on the smell of an oily rag and going around with begging bowls to get a bit of money to do it. If anyone from the Prime Minister's office is listening or watching, can I just say to you, and all parliamentarians, you started this commission with lots of enthusiasm. We need you to follow through. Not in 2 years or 3 years when people have changed. We need you to continue to be committed and to fund what is needed. A penny spent now will save pounds later. This is not going to cost any more. It will initially, but you're going to get I get veterans coming to me and say, "Oh, Gary, I've had 9 admissions to this clinic. I've been there for 4 to 6 weeks each time, and it doesn't seem to be working." Man, it's costing us, Peggy, you would know, it's costing us thousands of dollars a day to go into a system that's not even helping them. And it might be making them worse if they're locked up with a bunch of people that are running around screaming, etc. Like this is not rocket science. Prevention and early intervention is the solution. Like Michael said the other day, medicating, compensating and isolating hasn't worked. Prevention and early intervention will. Look, to anyone listening, I hope what I've said today is good news. We can turn this around. We are turning this around at a small level. The Royal Commission can provide the awakening to move forward positively in veteran health and care. Everyone's support can empower the mobilisation of an army of veterans carers who can assist in transforming the current situation. We're grateful for your support. We're counting on your support. God bless you all. I hope you can do it.
Thank you, Padre. Unless the commissioners have any particular questions, we might take a short break between witnesses.
Yes,
if
I think a short break. Padre, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your passion, thank you for your commitment, and thank you for what you've said to us today.
Thanks, Commissioner. And don't forget those policemen. Hey, they served alongside us and they need to be looked after too.
We'll take a short adjournment just for 10 minutes, and as I said at the beginning of the day today, those who arrived late, just be aware we do have a number of councillors working with the Royal Commission who are here today. Please feel free to reach out with anyone with an orange hanging thing. If anyone is distressed and they want to talk about it, there are councillors here who are happy to help you and happy to have a discreet chat with anyone who needs it. We'll adjourn for 10 minutes. Thank you, Padre.
No worries.
Mr. Connor.
All rise. The Royal Commission is now adjourned.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.